I can go almost anywhere in business class for free last minute. And once you get that feeling of no matter what happens, I need to get home to see a sick relative, or I got a new job and they need me back, knowing that you can get anywhere in the world essentially for free at any time is a powerful feeling. Travel is the only expense that makes you richer. And I believe it. And I think, all the trends show that people are now spending more on travel, less on things.
That is today's guest, Brian Kelly, the founder of The Points Guy. If you've ever searched for ways to maximize your travel through points and miles, you've likely encountered Brian's work. And his new book, How to Win at Travel, gives you a, quote, roadmap with all of the knowledge and tools you need to become an expert traveler. I read it. It delivers. It contains a lot of valuable insights for travelers of all experience levels. And in this episode, you're going to hear Brian's expert advice as we dive deep into the world of travel rewards, loyalty programs, and how to make the most of your travel rewards points, including how to powerfully reframe the way you think about points and miles as a financial tool, the different types of loyalty programs and how to maximize their value, practical tools and technologies that make booking with points easier, hidden gem destinations worth exploring, and so much more. You're also going to hear how he transformed a side hustle blog into a major travel media platform. Loads more coming your way in today's conversation. Plus, you'll hear the fifth and final installment of our 5 best road trips in the USA mini-series. I saved the best for last. You'll hear why in a moment. It's all happening in this episode right now, so buckle up, strap in. Thanks for being here, and welcome to the Zero to Travel podcast, my friend.
You're listening to the Zero to Travel podcast, where we explore exciting travel-based work, lifestyle, and business opportunities, helping you to achieve your wildest travel dreams. And now your host, world wanderer and travel junkie, Jason Moore.
Hey, it's Jason here with ZeroToTravel.com. Welcome to the show. Thank you for being here, letting me bring a little travel into your ears today. This is the show to help you travel the world on your terms, to fill your life with as much travel as you desire, no matter what your situation or experience. As you heard at the top, Brian Kelly is here. He's got a new book, How to Win at Travel. It landed on the New York Times bestsellers list. His website, thepointsguy.com, and at Brian Kelly on Insta. You're going to love this one. You'll also hear that final segment of our 5 best road trips in the USA mini-series. Partway through the interview, wanted to break it up to shake things up. And then you'll dive into part 2 of the conversation with Brian, and we'll wrap it up with a lovely quote today from the poet Walt Whitman. Don't forget, we have a newsletter. It's free, zerototravel.com/newsletter. It goes out once a week. You can sign up for that. I'm going to dive in now. Let's do it. Thank you for listening, and here's my conversation with Brian. Please enjoy.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Crossflight 957 to Canberra. Now ready for boarding through Gate Lounge 19. Please have your boarding pass ready for a presentation to our flight attendant who welcome you aboard today. Thank you.
Thanks for the book, by the way, which I have right here. How to Win at Travel. It was awesome. I read it. You can see all the dog-eared stuff going on.
That's the goal. I know it's a lot to chew on, especially for you're in the game, so you get it. But I'm hopeful the book helps bring even the most basic traveler up to a place of like, oh, this is how things work in the industry from a high level.
Yeah, it was awesome, man. I got to first say, Brian Kelly, welcome to the Zero to Travel podcast, my friend. I feel like for me, this one's been a long time coming. For you, probably not. I mean, you're on these all these major media, shows. Thanks for coming over to the travel podcast.
I love doing travel podcasts. I like talking to people who get it and get the crazy world of travel and travel creators. It's a unique world we live in, and I know we have a lot of mutual friends across the space.
It was really cool because when I started reading the book, I didn't know that you were from Bucks County. I grew up in Bucks County.
Oh, get out. Yeah, I'm coming to you from New Hope, Pennsylvania right now. I went Central Bucks East, and I moved to New York City after graduation, but I just gravitated back here. It's a beautiful area, close to New York, close to Philly, but quiet, beautiful. What part of Bucks did you grow up in?
Newtown.
Oh, get out. Yeah. Very close.
It wasn't as big as it is now. When I grew up, like even when I go back now, I'm just like, they have every single thing here now. This is Newtown. This is not.
Yeah, the New York Times just wrote about New Hope and all the celebrities that are living here now. It's kind of becoming like the low key Hamptons where people can get away from the craziness of New York, but not the traffic and stuff of the Hamptons.
Which is so funny to think because when we grew up, it was more of like the funky town you would take a
Totally.
day trip to,
Yeah.
and then you could it was the place you could buy like a crystal necklace or.
Totally. And the town still has that, but it's definitely the real estate has just boomed and there's lots and lots of investment happening, but it's still got that charm, I think.
Yeah. I like towns like that when you can one minute you're looking at like a vintage thing and then you could buy a crystal and then you're walking past like a gang of.
And then there's a hot sauce shop of all different hot sauces around the world. So you really get it all here in New Hope.
I love that, man. Well, for you growing up there, because I know the vibe, I mean, in general in the US, there's a lot of hustle culture, especially in the Northeast. I feel like growing up in that environment, do you agree with that? Like that hustle culture mentality? I'm sure that contributed to like some of the work you've done in a way. I feel like it has for me also. I'm just like starting to ask the question as you get removed from your culture and you look back, I'm like, all right, that's cool. Like that helps me in certain ways but it's like hustle culture might be good for business, but is it actually good for life?
Yeah, hustle culture is interesting. So I'm 41, so I grew up, mostly in the 90s. And I mean, my parents are baby boomers. They encouraged us to get jobs. I was hustling, doing summer jobs when I was 13, 14. And I worked at a car dealership, moving cars. And I don't know, but there also were a lot of wealthy families from this area too, where I saw a lot of the kids getting BMWs for their 16th birthdays. And I always wanted the nicer things in life, but I love my parents for this. My dad gave me his 1994 Pontiac Bonneville, which is a perfectly fine car, but like not exactly what a 16-year-old wants to be driving. And he said, look, if you want that nicer car, work for it. And I hated that, but in hindsight, it was the best thing he could have ever done because I learned very quickly, I've got talent, put it to use. If I want to make money, it's there. This is America, and in a crazy way, you can make a lot of money in different ways, but no one's just going to hand it to you. So I firmly believe teaching kids to work, roll up your sleeves. It may not be your dream job, but get the experience. And I think that has been a huge foundation of why I've been successful.
Yeah, I'm a bit older than you, but I can relate to the, growing up in that area. And it was the same, like very similar for me, like, getting a job dishwashing at 13, doing that, driving the car that I had to put it in neutral to keep it running at the red light. It was like, I was the only one that could drive it to keep it working type of thing. But then you have this other side of town that I didn't even know existed until I went to junior high of like completely like mega rich folks. The suburbs, I mean, this is a whole other podcast. The suburbs has its own messed up things about it, right? I'm bringing this up, I guess, because you're openly gay, and I can't imagine, like, I know growing up in that area, I can't imagine that was the easiest place to grow up with that.
No,
like, what was your experience with all that? Like,
yeah, so I didn't come out till after college. My family's amazing. I always knew my parents would be good, but it was a very not racially diverse, not diverse in a lot of, it was very much kind of snobby kids from upper middle class, upper class families. And there was just tons of homophobia. There was one gay kid in my high school of 550, well, out gay kid. He was the theater kid and the girls liked him, the jocks hated him, and everyone talked about him behind his back. And I was like, that's not the life I want to live, and I didn't quite have the confidence to not care what anyone says. I mean, it's middle school and high school. You're just trying to get through. And I learned to channel that energy in different ways. I, joined student government and, in hindsight, yeah, it would have been really nice to come out at, or not have to come out at all, which is what many kids these days are like, why would you come out? You are who you are. And I'm like, that's brilliant. That would have been really nice to just have everyone,
right.
Accept
it wasn't like
everyone.
That.
It was not like that. Even in New Hope is a very liberal area, Doylestown. But, in the 90s, it was just not like that. So I kind of chose the easier route for myself. Like, I don't have it in me to get made fun of every day. So yeah, I waited till I graduated college and then I moved straight to New York. And I was like, this is where I will come out. This is where I will be comfortable. And certainly New York City, if there's a place to do it, it's New York. And also I knew, back to that suburban life, it was really comfortable in a way, but I always knew the suburban lifestyle just wasn't for me, at least in my younger years. I needed the vibrancy. I needed to meet people from all different walks of life. And it really wasn't, I didn't go to Europe until I went to college. I studied abroad in Spain and just was blown away by just the different way of living, this slower pace in one way, the siestas and healthy food being cooked by, a family, and just like the really focus on family, but also having a great time. Not just focusing your whole life on work, but taking time to travel, and so that's really when I started to think, oh, I've got to explore this amazing earth.
Yeah. I'm based in Oslo, Norway. Just I know you asked earlier before we started recording, and it's it's definitely a different, as you know, the European lifestyle. It's a different sort of mindset in a lot of ways. I'm not saying that's not to poo-poo the American. I mean, it's different. Everything has its pros and cons, I suppose. What was the moment like for you? Have you talked about the coming out moment or that period? Or do you remember the day? Do you remember like a specific moment that you can point to that really?
Oh yeah.
Have you talked about it before, and are you comfortable talking about it?
Yeah, I'm totally comfortable talking about it. I mean, I talk openly about being gay because I think it's important. So many, when I was growing up, there really weren't that many gay idols. I mean, it was RuPaul in a way, but RuPaul was, so much more than just a gay man. It was, there just weren't that many. Will and Grace had come out. Queer as Folk probably was the most transformative show for me, which was similar to Sex in the City, but in a gay Pittsburgh. So I came out. I know my parents are amazing, and I think I felt the most guilty for lying. That fact that I didn't come out. So I then started to get in my head that I hadn't told my parents, who are to this day my best friends. I felt guilt around living a separate life, pretending to date girls, and that built up inside me. I felt real guilt about that. So it was right after college. I would go home to Bucks County on most weekends because I was broke. I was not making a lot of money. And then I remember I was like, I have to tell my parents this weekend. Of course, I waited. They would drive me to New Jersey Transit at Hamilton Station, not far from Newtown. And it was, I think we had to leave at 7:00, and it was 6:51. And I was just like, I have to do it. I have to rip this Band-Aid off. And I just remember saying, Mom and Dad, I have something to tell you. And I think anytime you tell a parent that, their faces drop like, uh-oh, what did you do? Are you okay? And then I just came right out and said, I'm gay. And I just remember this weight of 22 years dropping in that moment, just started bawling. And my parents both hugged me and were like, we love you. They were so good about it. And it took, it was still, I came out to I have 3 siblings. They were all amazing about it. And I really, from that point forward, my coworkers, I think my parents truly had no idea. Once again, we didn't grow up around gay people. We didn't have gay friends. It wasn't like my parents are anti-gay. It was just the world in which we lived. So I think, they went through a little bit of, we just want to make sure you're safe. We were also on the tail end of the AIDS crisis where, I think that was another guilty piece. I thought I would get AIDS the minute I said I was gay, just because of the kind of scare tactics of a lot of that public health crisis. So, in the end, though, I didn't, I know so many people who have families that disown them, or it's very difficult. I was very fortunate. And, I would just encourage it. It's amazing in 2025, though. And even in New York City, there's still many people living in the closet. I think there's this false notion out there that everyone's out and we've now moved past it. And that is very far from the truth. But I would just say that anyone listening, if you have a gay child, you don't maybe want to push them. I don't agree with pushing people out of the closet, but maybe giving hints to let them know, saying things could never be a bad thing, and just being as accepting as possible.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I wanted to bring this up for that exact reason. I think you never know who's listening and who your story will impact. Speaking of your story, it's interesting because when you start something like this, the Points Guy, and how it evolved and took off so quickly, and then you ended up selling it. We can get a little bit into the journey, but I know you've talked about that before in a lot of shows. I just think that part of that, that you may not even suspect going into it, is some of these roles that might be thrust upon you as a part of this. Like one minute you're like, oh, I'm like really I love this points and mile stuff. I get geeky on this. Like, I'm going to write about it. I'm going to share this knowledge. I know it's going to help people. And that's different than now. Okay, maybe I'm like a spokesperson for the gay travel community. I have to be on major media. Now I have to like become a marketer, like all of these different things that come, these roles that kind of can get thrust upon you. And I don't even want to say for better or worse. It's just kind of part of the package, right? How has that been for you in terms of, you can pick, there's a lot to pick apart there, I guess, but
Yeah, I mean, I would just say this, authenticity reigns supreme, and people want to connect, trust, follow, engage with people who they know about. So in the beginning, people would say, some of my friends would say, half your audience is probably very conservative and half's very liberal. So just keep your whole lifestyle to yourself and just stick to travel. And certainly there would be people on social media, hey, I don't care if you're gay or not, but I just give me my travel deal. And uh, I think there's a fine balance. You don't need to flaunt. I don't lead with the fact that I'm gay and here's today's travel deal, right? Like that's not really necessary. But I'm very open with my life. I'm a single gay dad. Some people don't agree with that. Great for them. I don't care. But a large majority of my audience, I think, what's made me very successful is opening up my life. And we live in an era of, for like it or not, of Kardashians and social media, but people want to know your story. And I found that the more open I am with my story, and I certainly choose pieces to tell. I'm not uh, sharing every bit of my kids growing up, but I do share travels with my kids, which I get people messaging me all the time. I love seeing this evolution of you as a father. Some people were saying, oh, when you have kids, you might lose your edge as the points guy because you're known as this jet setter, you know. And I would just say to anyone, your life's going to evolve, but people expect people to evolve. People want the story. People want, and there were a lot of other points bloggers at the time. People think I'm the OG, which I find very honoring. I'm honored for people to think that, but there were many, many before me. And but I do think I added a lot more of my personality into it, having fun with it, not making it just about the transferring Amex at this ratio to book this flight during this window. That information's important, but I think packaging the points guy as like, it's a fun lifestyle. The events that I've been able to go to through points and credit cards and promotions and taking people along for that ride, the friends that I have, taking my family on trips. So for any travel creators or creators in general out there, do what you're comfortable with, but being authentic, I think, does reign supreme at the end of the day.
Yeah, I love that. In terms of the creative side, what is the part of it that, you wrote a book and I was thinking, oh, did you ever expect to write a book? But then I was thinking, well, you started this blog, like clearly you were drawn to writing in some way. There's the creative aspect of all this. Like you're presenting information that is useful, but you have to do it in a way where you're communicating it. You have your story that you're bringing in and all that kind of stuff. Do you thrive more in the creative roles? Is that what kind of gets you excited? Or is it the system stuff? Or
Yeah, I really love the creative side. And so, I started the Points Guide in 2010 while I was still working on Wall Street. And it really was a fun creative outlet for me. I made no money on the site. I was, had like a award booking business where I was just trying to make 50 or $100 teaching people how to use points on their own. So I was like a travel agent for points just to make some extra cash on the side. So the Points Guy was just a side hustle. But when I started writing blog posts, my friend said, do one post a day every day. And trust me, SEO is going to, like, Google will have a field day with your content because so many people need it. Make it fun, make it you. And that became really, really enjoyable. I would say the content creation side, the Points Guy quickly grew. I started hiring people. I moved into a management role pretty quickly where I'm managing managers of people. I was always still traveling myself and covering my stories in social media, which is fun. You can create, snippets of these amazing experiences, but there's limitations to that too. And also I've just found that like this whole points world has evolved so much. So I'm covering this slow evolution every day, but people are not getting the big picture. So that I've always wanted to write a book. I actually had gotten a book deal in 2017 and just the timing wasn't right. I was CEO still of the Points Guy. We had a 50-person team growing like wildfire. And for this book, I needed to write it myself. I wanted I couldn't just say, "Hey, ghostwriter, write this book all about this unique world of loyalty." Um,
Yeah, you wanted
that
your
wasn't going
take.
to work. Yeah,
Authenticity.
so I waited until the time was right. I no longer, I'm still with the Points Guy. We're owned by a parent company, the same one that owns Lonely Planet, and a bunch of other companies. And my role now at the Points Guy is not day-to-day management. That's not my expertise in life. I give so much credit to the people managers out there, the HR professionals. Managing people is so important to a business and talent. It's funny because that's what I was doing in HR at Morgan Stanley before I started the Points Guy. So I have experience in it, but that's not my passion in life, is sitting in employee reviews. And it's a really important task, but just one not for me. So in 2020, I had sort of burnt out managing the business. We had sold it. So I just moved into a brand spokesperson role where I do TV, media, press, and I also help the team evolve social media content. So I still very much love the content. So doing this book was really fun for me. It was also challenging because I'm used to going really deep in a blog post on one subject. And this book is a lot of meat. It's not just points, but it's earning points, redeeming, and then the perks, but a bunch more like jet lag, fear of flying, which is huge, a huge, huge issue these days, budgeting, safety, etiquette. I really wanted to make a primer book that would bring a young person who wants to travel but is overwhelmed by it and give them the baseline of here's where you really need to invest, understanding credit, how credit cards work, and the different layout of the points programs. So yeah, trimming it, it's 300 pages, and that was tough to get to. I think if I had it my way, my editor was like, this is going to be a 600-page book, and ain't nobody got time for that. So this, I hope, will be the first of many.
Yeah, cool. I mean, well, especially with the nuances, I'm not overstating it. It is packed with value. Like, I will tell you, this book is absolutely packed with value. Like, you turn the page and you're like, oh yeah, okay, that more. Okay, yeah, okay, I got to remember that. And so there is a lot going on and a lot to unpack. We are going to get into some of the tips. Actually, one last thing before we dive in, because I know the Points Guy was involved with Peace Jam, which is this mentorship program where you can explain what it is. I have a follow-up question to this, but I just thought this was a really cool concept.
Yeah, so when the Points Guy started to take off, I was like, what organization can we give back to? I personally love, I almost said Teach for America. So young people, education, I think is critical. I'm also pretty anti-war and seeing conflict, especially through my travels and how that can wreak havoc. So I'm very much pro-peace, pro-youth education. And I was looking for an organization that kind of needed travel to help amplify its message, as the Points Guy. And a friend of mine had done Peace Jam in college, and it's a group of Nobel Peace Prize winners. It's their platform. So after you win the Nobel Peace Prize, which is very challenging, you would then get invited into Peace Jam, which was started by the Dalai Lama, Desmond Tutu, and a bunch of peace activists. And it is simply put the Nobel Peace Prize winners group to take their message to kids globally. So there's a curriculum and after school program. There are youth chapters of Peace Jam all around the world. And some of the most active chapters were in Guatemala and all throughout Africa, but there was no funding. And the concept of Peace Jam is you learn about a certain Nobel laureate, the messages like Dalai Lama's compassion through leadership. Even when he was kicked out of his country, he still is the most compassionate person, and learning how to solve conflict without violence. And then one of the Nobel laureates will visit the major chapters, and they do a Peace Jam, which is a 3-day conference, which is life-changing for these kids, many of whom, do not have the means to have access to Nobel Peace Prize winners. It's inspirational. So the Points Guy, about 10 years ago, we started funding using frequent flyer miles. We would fly the laureates around the world, and then we started donating more and more. So we run these huge chapters now in Accra, Cape Town, Liberia, Guatemala, and it's been incredible. We've built movements. We now have a program where we put our top peace jammers through college, and really the hopes is just making this next generation of peaceful leader, which I think we can all agree the world needs right now.
Yeah, I always thought they should make the world leaders go backpacking through Southeast Asia or Europe and stay in hostels together, before they take over their countries. They should have to just like stay in a hostel dorm room for 8 weeks and then come back and let us know how you run things.
Yeah, that'll teach a lot of, that would teach a lot of skills, resilience.
Well, I mean, I brought up the Peace Jam thing too, just because I wanted to hear more about it. I love the program, and also that you guys are tied in with it. And it's a form of mentorship in many ways. And I've heard you say, even in this interview, a friend told me this, and in the book, you're like, oh, this friend told me about affiliate marketing and different things. And I'm just wondering, like, for you, did you have a mentor when you were kind of going through this, or was it just like sort of various friends, a mastermind group, like a business, some network? How did you? Yeah, and what advice would you give for people around that?
It's interesting because there's a Points and Miles community that I was a part of for years, and then once the Points guy started to become successful, it's almost like that community turned against me. They didn't like. There's a lot of you're sort of ruining it by telling everyone else the stories. My take is,
like a scarcity mentality, kind of.
Yes, yeah, like you're ruining this for all of us. Meanwhile, there had been bloggers for years. So it was a little bit lonely after the blog became really popular, and it monetized. Once I got into the world of affiliate marketing in 2011, it was, it was really, I made $1 million within 6 months. And mind you, I'd been making, $65,000 a year working in HR at a bank during the Great Recession, no bonuses. I was living paycheck to paycheck in New York. I was doing this because I loved it. Never had the business plan, never thought it would become, a huge business. So I stumbled into it and learned on the job. I was an 27-year-old HR associate at a bank. Then all of a sudden I'm a blogger. And then all of a sudden it's becoming a media platform with, 8, 10, 12, 20, 30, 40, now well over 150 employees. So that was a journey. I think I've had, later in my career, I met some really amazing business people who I started to lean on for advice. But I would say for the first 5 years, the transition from corporate America to becoming my own blogger, small business owner, hiring, all the mistakes that go along with it. I never had leadership training and really how to manage high performance teams. I learned on the go. I was a Spanish major at the University of Pittsburgh. Now, I was a student body president and I was very active on campus. So there were skills I learned along the way. But, it was definitely lonely for a while as I knew the success I wanted. I did feel guilty about it in the beginning, especially when people start saying nasty things on the internet. I also learned quickly that, you're onto something when people start coming for you. So it's a tough pill to swallow, and you got to build a thick skin quickly, working on the interwebs. But yeah. So no real official mentors that were like, hey, do this, do that. It was very much the wild, wild west for a while.
Yeah. Well, the concept you just shared, this idea that, if people are coming for you, that means you're probably onto a good thing, is, I think it's important. And it's almost like a reframe, right? And I'm bringing this up because I wanted to dive into some of the content in the book, How to Win at Travel. Yeah, like the first paragraph of chapter 7, How to Win at Redeeming Points. I thought this was a great reframe. So you said, think of being smart about points not as a frivolous coupon clipping activity, but as more of a financial tip that can allow you to reallocate your cash for other things, such as a down payment on a home or investing in the stock market, while still being able to travel and enrich your soul. And I was like, man, this is just like a great way to reframe it. Like, if anybody's just going into this conversation, I wanted to highlight that for 2 reasons. One is, if you're skeptical or you're thinking like Points and Miles, I don't know, or like I'm not a business traveler that spends $100,000 a year, whatever, or the coupon clipping example. It's just like, there you go. Here, let's just like go through this lens for starters. And secondly, just to kind of kick off the conversation, I'm just wondering, are there any other helpful, like overarching reframes that you want to share here?
I mean, the biggest thing about points, even if you're not a huge traveler, learning how to play the points game and credit cards is winning at life. This is learning how to advocate, figure out the best return for you. Because I go into it with these credit cards. So points are one really nice feature. And by the way, you don't need to get airline miles. You can get cash back. So, I mean, and this is specifically in America where credit cards are wildly lucrative. They're built into the cost of doing business. So by you not choosing not to participate in this points ecosystem, even cash back, you're doing financial harm to yourself, not just because you're not getting the value of those points, which most of us travel at least once or twice a year. You can get a lot of value from travel, in which you don't have to lay out cash to travel for free, and then use your cash and put it towards your retirement or your kids' college. I don't know a single person. There are a lot of billionaires. Trust me, I have a lot of billionaires who read the Points Guy and love, because that's how you get rich, by being smart about a system, right? That's what I just want to drive home to people.
They're like, I want to save $50 on this next flight.
No, and it's like, well, why would you decide to throw? And in billionaires' case, they have businesses they're running with millions of points in their first class flights, and those of their employees. They can, redeem points to fly their employees first class. Their employees then like them more. So it's like, when you have points, it's power. And it's also an insurance policy. If you're a traveler internationally, if you ever have to get home last minute, the airlines will charge you extraordinary amounts of money for one-way last minute flights. Using points, I can go almost anywhere in business class for free last minute. And once you get that feeling of, no matter what happens, I need to get home to see a sick relative, or I got a new job and they need me back, knowing that you can get anywhere in the world essentially for free at any time is a powerful feeling. And my point is, like, when you start mastering the points world, and especially as a young person, and you can take control of your credit. We're not taught about credit in college and in high school. You should be. And when you play the points game correctly and you pay your bills in full every month, your credit score goes up. Guess what? When you've got a top tier credit score, you're getting a cheaper mortgage, which can save you thousands and thousands of dollars. So, like, playing the points game isn't just the free flight to Cancun. You're missing the point if you think so. It's much larger. It's empowering yourself to see a system and get your fair share or more of it.
Yeah. Okay. That's powerful. Yeah. Financial literacy or personal finance. There's a huge component to that if you're getting into the credit card game, part of it, I should say, which maybe before we dive into with some more questions, we should divide this up into, I feel like, especially because you can accrue so many points and miles through credit card redemption, which if people are just listening and they're like, what, huh? Like, this is the first time they're hearing about it. You can give a quick overview, I would say. I'm really looking here to, like, hey, let's just highlight some concepts for the person that's maybe, they've dipped their toes in. They have maybe they have a credit card. They're like, but they want to like sort of level up. It is challenging to think about going in and getting credit cards and all that. And there's two camps here in a way, if you're looking at the credit card game. One is the US based person, which it's much more lucrative from a points and miles standpoint in the US to do this. Some parts of this game, I should say, if you want to call it a game, versus being outside the US. Now I live in Norway, so like I have the SAS Euro bonus cards. Like I can have that. I can have like a Norwegian card, but or Norwegian Air card, but it's not like I'm not getting, it takes so much longer to earn free flights and everything. And it is what it is. So perhaps you want to just share a little bit of advice for anybody listening outside of the US first, and then we can, if you want.
Yeah, well, I'll just give the credit card spiel because it's the same basics. In the US, there's tons more options, much more lucrative, but there's three main types of credit cards in general you can get. It's like, number one, it's just a straight up cashback credit card where you get a percentage back, for whatever you spend. That's for people who like don't care about travel. You just want to earn some back, because this is just the rewards aspect of the card. There's several other major reasons you want to use credit cards these days instead of cash. The second is protection, because when anything goes wrong, especially in the US, you're protected when you use a credit card. And if you use cash and you get scammed, sorry, you're out. You're not going to the cops and they're going to give you your money back. Your credit card company has your back. You go to a hostel that doesn't exist, or an Airbnb that wasn't what it said it was. You might try to get it back from the travel provider, but your credit card can stop payment and give you the money back if you didn't get what was promised. So huge protections there. The points, the protections, and then thirdly, a lot of credit cards, as long as you pay them off in full every month, you're not paying interest, but you can get up to 30, 45 days of free float before you have to pay your card. So keep your cash in an interest-bearing account, and you're earning interest on your cash until you absolutely have to pay the credit card. you're getting your protections, and you're getting your points. So those are like the three key reasons why you'd want to use a credit card. Certainly points is the most tangible. So you get your cashback credit cards. You have your airline and hotel. We call them co-brand credit cards. And points are important there, but what's really important are perks like free checked bags. A lot of the airline cards will give you a companion ticket once a year, fast track to elite status, lounge access. Those are the things that can make travel a whole lot better. And nowadays, what people don't realize, it's not just about luxury. Going to an airline lounge, if your flight's canceled and the airport's chaos, you're going to have to wait in an hour-long line and maybe get help. Whereas if you've got lounge access, you can go to one of the best agents at the airline. You're rebooked in 5 minutes and having a nice cup of coffee and a snack while you wait for your delayed flight instead of standing miserable in a line. So the perks are what I try to tell people. Yes, there might be an annual fee, but look at the perks you're getting. Is that one companion ticket you use a year going to be more than the annual fee? In most cases, it is. So, don't just look at the annual fee and say no. Look at the annual fee and then look at, okay, well, what's the value I can get out of this? And even if you're traveling a couple times a year, checking a bag here or there, it can be totally worth it. And then the best kind of points are the transferable points. Amex points, Chase points. These are really big in the US, where credit card companies have now created their own loyalty programs that allow you to transfer to tons of different partners. So instead of putting all your miles in one basket with one airline, you can accrue bank points that you can then transfer to tons of different partners based on where you want to go. And that's where the most value can be extracted in general.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, thanks for the breakdown. And I know in the book you're clear about this and with your work, and I've said this before too. It's like, I don't think anybody here is advocating for just haphazardly signing up for credit cards just for the points. Like, be a it should go without saying. It's about if you can be responsible with the credit cards, if you can pay your bill in full every month and all that. Today is the fifth and final installment of this special mini-series, the 5 best road trips in the USA. And with this week's featured road trip, I am going to go out on a limb and say that, yes, I have saved the best for last. I'm only saying that because this particular road trip is near and dear to my heart. I'll tell you why in a moment. First, I do want to remind you that the previous 4 segments of this series were published in the Tuesday episodes over the last 4 weeks, so you can go check those out. And I do want to say a massive thank you to Defender for supporting this series, which was designed to help you discover new, unforgettable trips in 5 regions of the USA, including a breakdown of why the trip is worth doing and a suggested itinerary. And what makes this community so special and what makes you special is your willingness to dive into a destination and explore it your way. Your willingness to get out and travel, to get out of your comfort zone, and to embrace all of the uncertainties that come with that. That can always serve as an excellent reminder to yourself that you're capable of great things and able to embrace the impossible. And that is what makes you an icon of adventure. Defender is another icon of adventure and truly the ultimate road trip vehicle for many reasons, including its legendary durability, both off-road and on, its cargo capacity, and the fact that it's tested to the extreme. Defender's family of vehicles includes the 90, 110, or the 130, which has 8 seats with a tough, rigid body design. It's been reimagined for a new generation of explorers. That is you. Design your Defender at LandRoverUSA.com. Okay, why is this week's road trip near and dear to my heart? Well, this is the exact trip I took for my honeymoon with a couple of bonus stops mixed in. But that is how highly I think of this road trip. I call it the Colorado Loop, aka the honeymoon loop, if you will. But even if you're not doing it with a spouse, if you're doing it alone or with a friend or a family member, by the end, I guarantee you'll fall head over heels for Colorado. Yes, we are headed west to complete this series. And I might add that this road trip is a great example of slow travel. Show up in one state and just explore that one state. And the first stop is my home for many years, Boulder, Colorado. A wonderful place, a college town, yes, but so much more than that. It's a town full of free spirits and outdoor lovers, a town that is now also filled with some of the bigger names in technology, a sort of mini Silicon Valley at this point. And it's a beautiful town packed with many things to see and do. You can hit up the Laughing Goat for a morning coffee, one of my favorite coffee shops, and take a stroll down pedestrian-only Pearl Street to do some shopping and check out some of the local arts and crafts stores. Then you can lace up your hiking boots, maybe make a visit to Chautauqua Park to hike in the iconic Flatiron Mountains, which are in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains, or hike up the local favorite, Mount Sanitas, to catch a sunrise or a sunset. I have done that many times in my life. And I've even done like a full moon hike, which is another spectacular way to see the summit of the mountain and get a view of all of Boulder without the crowds. And afterwards, you can catch a meal in what Bon Appetit named America's foodiest town. And my favorite spot is the original Mountain Sun Brew Pub on Pearl Street. If you walk in and you tell them it's your first time there, don't be surprised if they start flinging free fries and drinks at you and things like that to try out. It's run by what some locals call the hippie mafia as a joke, because if for some reason you can't pay because they only take cash, you can mail them some cash later on in an envelope. That's how they roll. They're kind of very trusting, and it got great food and a great atmosphere. And be sure to check out the chalkboard, which has some incredible art on it. I'll leave it at that. Okay, I could go on in Boulder with things to do there, but we got to move on. We're heading south on 285 to Salida. Founded in the 1800s, Salida was originally a stagecoach stop. Its downtown is now on the National Register of Historic Places. And Salida is a bit of a water sports hub, particularly rafting. They have a whitewater rafting park that runs right through the historic downtown. Of course, you don't have to just raft. You can surf, and there's other whitewater activities you can do there. But if you're there, you might want to do some whitewater rafting and indulge in one of the other many outdoor activities in the surrounding area. If you have loads of outdoor gear, of course, you can take advantage of that Defender's legendary cargo capacity. Next, we're going to make a stop in Ridgway before heading on to Telluride. Ridgway, Colorado, is home to Orvis Hot Springs and Spa, which is a clothing optional natural hot springs resort with 10 soaking areas. And the temperatures of those soaking areas run from 65 to 112 degrees. So if you want to head there at night to pair your soak with some stargazing, you can do that. If you just want to take multiple trips throughout the day, like we did, maybe you go in the morning, you go on a hike in the afternoon and come back in the evening or at night, it's a wonderful place to visit. Now, along this route, you can, on your way to Telluride, pit stop in nearby Ouray, known as the Switzerland of America. It's a worthwhile destination in any season and globally famous for its ice climbing. Okay, now we're heading on to one of my all-time favorite towns anywhere, Telluride, Colorado. Originally a mining town, it sits in a box canyon, so it's surrounded by cliffs and forested mountains, and it has this Lord of the Ring-ish way about it, since the road into the town really terminates at this beautiful waterfall called Bridal Veil Falls, a gorgeous waterfall that cascades down the head of the canyon, seems to watch over the town like some kind of benevolent natural monarch or something. This is an absolutely special place, stunning and charming in every way. Of course, in the winter, you've got world-class skiing, you've got hiking, and music, and so much more. And although it's home to under 3,000 locals, this place is loaded with incredible events throughout the year, including one that's definitely worth the trip, the one I went to, the Telluride Bluegrass Festival, 4 days of magnificent music, mountains, and memory making. They have a film festival. It is the quintessential Colorado mountain town, tons of things to see and do, gorgeous nature, incredible place to visit. So head to Telluride, Colorado, if you get a chance. Okay, now it's time to complete the loop. We're going to head northwest to Grand Junction. It's on the western slope of Colorado. You can be sure to try some of the Palisade peaches there if they're in season, some of the juiciest peaches I've ever had anywhere. And if you want to see some gorgeous grand views of towering red rocks, head to nearby Colorado National Monument. Now, on your way out of Grand Junction, you can head east and make a beeline back to Denver or Boulder, wherever you're headed from here, or you can take a little side trip on the way off of I-70 to Aspen. You can visit Maroon Bells Wilderness for the jaw-dropping and accessible nature. enjoy some world-class food and shopping there in that gorgeous downtown area, and then head back and complete the loop. With this road trip in Colorado, you can't go wrong, I'm telling you. We have so many fond memories from our honeymoon doing this loop. And let me know if you end up hitting any points along this, what I call the Colorado loop, at any point in your travels upcoming. I want to thank you for listening to this special mini-series, 5 best road trips in the USA. I had so much fun putting this together for you, and I want to thank our friends at Defender, who love a great road trip, for supporting this special mini-series geared to helping you discover your next great adventure. Check out the ultimate road trip vehicle, the Defender. Defender's family of vehicles includes the 90, 110, or 130. This icon of adventure with a tough, rigid body design has been reimagined for a new generation of explorers. That is you. Design your Defender at LandRoverUSA.com. Thanks for listening. The example you just used of going into the airport lounge and talking to the person there to have them rebook your flight instead of waiting in line when something gets canceled, and then it's, you turn the corner and like the demoralizing 50-person long line, and you're like, no, that's actually not something I've ever done. And I think it was a good example of, like, even if you were just at the airport and you pay to go in, $30 or $50 or whatever it costs to go into the lounge, it could be worth it. And I think that was a good example of, like, sort of maybe a counterintuitive tip, or just something that maybe is not top of mind. Related to redemptions, I think there was something I wanted to pull out as an example of another sort of thing to get people thinking about, oh, like, this is an actual possibility. And I wanted you to talk about, like, the zone-based Hawaii hack, like getting to Hawaii in a sort of a really affordable way. And maybe the best place to start is to break down the 4 main loyalty program structures. And then, you can share that, because I think it's a great example of, like, what people can start getting a taste of what's possible.
Yeah. So, historically, frequent flyer programs were based on charts. So if you were leaving from anywhere in Europe, going to North America in a European-based program, it's the same price. Well, in the American programs, you pay a lot more to go to Hawaii because it's much further away. But the European programs just look at the U.S. as the U.S. So many don't break out Hawaii because, there's probably not that many people redeeming, and it's easier just to have it all basis one. So for Americans, you can accrue points in European frequent flyer programs, which you can because there's a lot of transferable credit cards. There are ways to maximize the system, transferring points to frequent flyer programs that have the best redemption rates between regions. So that's what we call maximizing the game. And this is why I think learning how to use frequent flyer programs helps you just take a different look at every program, whether it's your supermarket program or, mortgages. How do I get the best deals out of each of these promotions that are being run, right? Because I think points people, we have an analytical eye. We read the T's and C's, when they're not too long, and see where the value is. And we call these sweet spots. And I talk about it in the book. I list a couple examples, but, for example, Air France classifies Israel, which is Middle East in most programs, or even Asia, as Europe. So, and Air France, then, to take it a step further, allows free stopovers. So for an American family who wants to go to Paris for a couple of days, and then fly from Paris to Tel Aviv, which is a 5-hour flight, completely free with the Air France program. It's the same price to fly to Paris as it is to fly to Paris and then add on a trip to Tel Aviv, as an example. There's plenty other nuances. So these are more advanced topics, and most people just have never heard of that. And they're like, well, wait a minute. I've used Air France miles all the time. I've just been ending in Paris and then buying my flights to Italy or wherever. You could have been getting those flights for free or very close to it for many years. Those are the aha moments I want people to have. I don't go in the book and list every single program, but what I say is, today, if you have a ton of British Airways miles, you should Google the best ways to maximize British Airways miles. Obvious. There's so many bloggers out there. All this information's out there on the internet. You just need to know how to maximize the program, or the best frequent flyer programs for flying to Hawaii. There are some that are then, so that's the regions based programs. Then there's distance based. So some programs like British Airways will charge based on bands of distance. But as many of us will realize, sometimes short flights are really expensive. So these are the programs you use when you want to fly, in the US, like New York to Toronto is a really expensive route. Lots of business people. The Canadian travel market doesn't have that many competitors. So you could easily pay for a 300-mile flight $500 or $1,000 during busy weeks. But then you'd want to use a frequent flyer program that prices award tickets based on distance, because you might only be paying 3,000 points because it's a short flight. So, each frequent flyer program has its pros and cons, and when you become an expert at points, you learn, oh no, I'm not going to fly this, the distance-based award chart for a super long flight because I'm going to be spending a lot of points. I'm going to choose a frequent flyer program that'll just charge me one set fee for regions. And then there's also, nowadays there's dynamic programs like Delta, United. Now they just charge whatever the heck they want for whatever you want. You never know what you're going to get. And those are the programs we steer away from nowadays because they just keep devaluing the currency, meaning, you never know what you're going to get. So it could be 600,000 points one way to go to Europe, whereas other programs, it'll be 50,000. So teaching people, not all frequent flyer programs are the same. And there's no one frequent flyer program the best for everyone. So by understanding the different flavors and then seeing what your personal needs are, that's how you win at points.
Okay, I love that. Yeah. So you get the overarching view and then you pick your flavor. Like when you're at the gelato stand, you got to try the different flavors.
People always just say, well, just tell me the best credit card, the best program. I'm not going to do all the work for you because I can't, because there's limitless possibilities based on where you want to go, what you spend your money on, how you like to fly, the airline, you really have to learn the programs that best align with your travel habits. There's no, the book will teach you the overarching foundations of what to think about. I'll lead you in the right direction. But, even though it's 300 pages, it still has to be, keep it moving. You can't go down, I don't go down too many rabbit holes. And that's what, there's tons and tons of blog posts all around the internet that can help you dive deeper into a topic.
Yeah. I like your point too on, the trickle down effect of, there is something to it where if you start figuring out this and you're getting travel or you're starting to travel in a certain way that you're like, oh wow, this is possible. And it can be addictive, but it's also addictive. Like you said, well, you didn't say addictive, but I think it's addictive. This idea of like looking at other systems within society and being like, I don't want to say like hacking them, but kind of like trying to take an unconventional approach. It just, it changes your mindset when you start to see, okay, it's not about taking advantage of the system. It's about working within a system and perhaps sometimes.
For sure. And I also, one of the big lessons when travel goes wrong, right? Because travel is always going to melt down. This will continue. That is one of the constants of the travel industry: meltdowns, delays, cancellations. And I have a whole chapter on what to do when things go wrong. And there's a great piece of feedback I love telling people, and this works every industry. When you're on the phone with a travel, an airline or a hotel, and the person just isn't giving you an inch, instead of battling that person who's not going to give you what you want, we do HUCA, Huca, hang up, call again. Because the concept is,
boom.
Some people are just having a bad day. Some people just don't want to help you. Some people don't know how to help you. Some people don't want to, these days, phone agents are monitored. So you might get a really new agent who doesn't have a lot of political capital to go out on the line for you. But you hang up and you get Deborah, who's been there for 35 years and knows every trick in the book. You may get what you want. But when you're running into a wall, don't keep smashing your head into a wall, which is what I see people do all the time. And then your account gets notated because you're a jerk and ask, and that's another overarching rule is be nice. And understand when you're asking for something, whether it's a favor or what you're owed. And unfortunately for travelers, especially in the US, there's not a lot of consumer protection. So most of the time, when you really want to get on another flight and it's canceled because of weather or air traffic, berating the agent and saying you're never going to fly JetBlue again, they don't care. And in fact, probably will not want to help you. So it's like being strategic about your communication in customer service to get what you want. So yeah, I think that chapter is because I sit and watch in the airport and people are just nasty. Yes, airline employees can be nasty too, don't get me wrong, but they have all the power. So understand that and be strategic. And being nice has gotten me way more than by being nasty.
Be strategic and also just like be
don't be a jerk.
Compassionate human.
Yeah.
Try to
seriously.
Yeah, I know it can be tense in the airports at certain times. People coming late and trying to get it gets crazy. I mean, well, what is one of the crazier things you've experienced in the airport? The whole dynamic about flying is such a weird thing because you are packing a bunch of random people from all walks of life into one tin tube for many hours sometimes.
Quite an experiment, I'll say that.
Have you run into any strange occurrences or perhaps strange seatmates?
Yeah, I've actually run into really amazing seatmates who I've become lifelong friends with. And this is funny to talk about it as a traveling parent. I travel with now 2 kids, and people, especially in the US, are so anti-baby. Babies shouldn't be allowed in first class. Some people think babies shouldn't be able to fly. I'm like, grow up. I 100% can say with certitude, I have seen grown-ass adults become more disruptive than babies in my many, many millions of miles of flights. Drunk-ass men. A guy recently was so drunk, 300 pounds, smashed into the TV while waiting for the bathroom, completely passed out, knocked his head into the TV. Everyone jumped. So, during the pandemic, all the mask nonsense and diatribes, I saw a bunch of that nonsense. So it's like the baby thing that's such a tired argument. Get over it. Get yourself noise canceling headphones. We were all babies one time. Babies belong on planes. Period. Full stop. Stop wasting your energy with that. By being a jerk to parents who have kids, you're stressing them out and probably stressing the baby out and causing yourself more harm. So I want to reframe how you look at it. Ask a pregnant woman if she needs help getting her bags up or with small kids. Like, being nice. I do believe in karma points. Being nice and not a jerk. And guess what? A screaming child does not mean a negligent parent. The best kids can have off days, and just by letting it go. And if you really feel strongly that you need to control the manifest of a plane, charter your own, because planes, I hate to tell you, are public transit. So you don't get to say who gets to fly, So
yeah, I mean, I have 2 kids, so I feel you on the baby thing. Karma points. You don't want to maximize those points. That you can't. You just get them, and you just have to let them accrue. You can't really
redeem. Well, the thing is, you can't choose when to redeem them either. And I will say, I've flown a lot, and I've generally had good experiences. And I do believe it's also a mindset. I think a lot of experiences that I have, some people would think, people bitch and moan over 2 hours delayed. Can you believe it? Just chill out. Read a book. Change that inconvenience into something positive. Just be appreciative of the fact that we can travel and still so relatively affordably. That's what I opened the book about. People don't realize context, but people think the golden age of travel is behind us, and that's just completely false. The day travel today is so incredible. Yes, it can be tight in coach, and certain airlines have, scaled back, but the fact that we can travel Newark to Singapore nonstop safely and relatively inexpensively is amazing.
Yeah, it is true. I mean, it is a great reminder. And maybe somebody's listening to this at the airport right now, and they're 3 hours delayed, and they can think, okay, well, at least I don't have to take a wagon across the country for, 4 weeks or whatever through the winter. Do you identify with like a Eastern philosophy or anything? I know you mentioned karma points. You've mentioned a couple of them. I'm just curious
Yeah, no,
personally.
I don't. I think I'm not super religious person. I am spiritual. I do just believe, my life has been blessed. I try to pass it along. I think I probably have, there are some uh, Buddhist beliefs peppered through my just opinions on life and just everyone respecting each other, kind of stay in your lane, focus on what you can control on, and your life will be a lot happier.
Yeah. Okay. Speaking of blessed, I know I forgot to do this. I was going to ask before you started giving points and miles advice, if you could give us the blessing that you gave your friend Haley.
Those were crazy. I think I was like clicking and dun, 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 dun. For those of you who are completely confused right now, I wrote a whole chapter on fear of flying because I'm still shocked at how many people have it. And I had a friend in high school who would make me bless her before a flight because I did it once as a joke. I was like doing this incantation and because she was really afraid to fly, and I did it and she was safe that trip, duh. And then I had to do it every single time she flew for many years. And but now she no longer needs the blessing and she's good at flying, which uh, for many people with fear of flying, a lot of times it's just getting those reps in and realizing and understanding the data that, flying is extraordinarily safe these days, even if it appears not to be on social media.
Yeah. You advanced over a few bullet point tips too. I wanted to highlight a couple of these and then a couple more questions, and we'll let you get out of here because I know you got a lot going on promoting the book here, by the way, How to Win at Travel. So I wanted you to share a little bit about the tools and technologies that you can use to make booking and redeeming points and miles easier, because this is one of those things that it's pretty new to me. And I'm sure this is another software world that's ever evolving. But the fact that these types of things exist, I think that it could benefit a lot of people. You want to share?
Yeah. So, historically, the airlines, when you want to buy a ticket, you can go to Google Flights, you can go to Skyscanner or whatever, and you're going to get a pretty good sense of how much flights are between certain routes. Unfortunately, when it comes to using points, every airline has their own currency, their own platform to search. So it can be very time consuming, and especially if you have American Express points or one of these transferable points currencies, you've got 30 options. Like no one has the time to go and do manual searches on 30 different websites if you want to go New York to Paris. Well, there's a website called point.me, which is basically like Google Flights, but for award tickets. And it will do a search of all the major ways to use your points to get between two city pairs on any certain day, which is very valuable. So, a lot of people make mistakes with their credit card points. They'll just buy the ticket for like 1 cent per point. You call up Amex for $1,000 flight, they'll say 100,000 points, they're buying the flight. But that same flight, that's 100,000 points, could be as low as 20,000 if you just transferred to a certain partner. So you can save huge amounts of money by transferring points. And Point Me will do it all for you. And they'll say, no, don't redeem through Amex, transfer to this partner, same exact flight, a fraction of the points. And there's one other tool that I love is seats.aero. So if you're flexible, which is how you pay the least amount of points these days. So say there's a route, LA to Dubai, which is, $30,000 in first class, crazy expensive even in economy. Seats.aero lets you search by airline loyalty program, and you can search up to a year per route. So you can say, well, I have family in Dubai or whatever, I need to go at some point. And it'll pull up whether LA, New York, Chicago to Dubai. You can pull up the entire year, sort by first, business, premium, economy, and you can find the dates that work for your schedule. So you can narrow it down to, I just want to look in May of this year. I want to see what Emirates has on that route, or, Aeroplan, which is Star Alliance. And so this helps you kind of see in an instant. You don't have to search day by day, clicking through to see, this will it sorts far and wide on a singular airline loyalty program, whereas Point.me is far deep on a certain day across many airlines.
Yeah. Okay. That's a great way to describe it. So then, everybody can pull what makes sense for them from that. Lastly, on just like sort of the tips, the travel insurance question is always something that pops up like when you're buying a flight. And No matter how many times you buy flights, I feel like this is like one of the moments where you hesitate.
Don't do it.
Like,
Don't do it.
Okay, yeah. Give us the definitive answer here.
So I believe in travel insurance, especially for international trips, big ticket trips where non-refundable, you got to put big money down on a cruise, but your parents may not be in great health. So that's when you're like, we got it. It's non-refundable. But if you buy travel insurance, which can be as little as 5% or less of the trip, which is just like a rounding number on some trips, it'll cover so much, including parent illness, sickness, jury duty, change of job, wildfires, crazy storm, all that stuff that keeps on happening these days. Well, you should never expect the cruise line to refund you if you can't get out because there's a wildfire. They won't. And this is when people get incensed. I can't believe it. Something bad happened. But this is what happens when you book a lot of non-refundable travel. You are agreeing. And back to the whole point of knowing when you're asking for a favor. So many people are shocked. They're like, oh, I have a doctor's appointment. I can't go on my flight. I'm sick. The airline should refund me. They won't, because everyone would just lie and say they were sick. Don't you get that? So people are like, these airlines are heartless. I had to go to the doctor last minute. They should just refund me. But if everyone could just lie and say they had it, or create a fake doctor's note, which is what everyone does. So you need to understand, if you want to insure a trip, you have to insure it. It's just like if your house burns down and you didn't have insurance, you can't say, well, that was bad. A bad thing happened. Give me my money back. Like, no, that's what you buy insurance for. So while some airlines may be nice and might give you a voucher, like, this is where you need to understand, when you're agreeing to play these rules of, I'm going to get a cheap fare, but I'm going to have no refund rules. You're playing a game, and you shouldn't expect the airline to eat that if you lose, even if it's a really sad situation. So, but never book through the airlines, hotels, or Airbnb. Always book your travel insurance. InsureMyTrip.com is a marketplace where you can basically compare and contrast policies. I highly recommend it. It's like 5 minutes. Take a look at what each policy covers, the exclusions, and it'll be cheaper and way better coverage than buying it directly through the airline.
Okay, cool. Thanks. All right, so you mentioned fake doctor's notes. I was having flashbacks to high school and my fake notes that I brought in for absentees. Brian, have you ever gone, like, for example, let's say, to the rental car counter and asked for a corporate discount at a company you don't work for? For example.
Yes. I won't lie. I used to do that back in the day. Hotels. I mean, there are certain corporate codes that'll save you so much money.
I mean, just a hypothetical. I can't say I've done it.
I don't recommend doing it for rental cars, because if you get in an accident and they find out you lied about a corporate rate, you actually could lose a lot. Hotels are a little bit different. Most of the time they don't check. If they ever did check, you could just be like, I'm here for an interview. I don't have an employee ID. I don't recommend doing it. It's not ethical, but it's much easier to get away with in hotels. However, in the book, I don't want to give away the whole book, but there are ways to join professional associations like the American Bar Association. You don't need to be a lawyer, but the American Bar Association, anyone can join for $50 or so, and they have crazy low rates on luxury hotels in a lot of big cities. So it may make sense to pay to join there's something like an affiliated person in the industry. So that's the more legitimate way to get a really cheap corporate rate. Or AARP. You don't need to be old to use AARP. So
I mean, I might have been an employee of various companies at one time, a hypothetical employee, I would add. No, that's great. Yeah. And that example you used from the book, I think that's like another obscure kind of, like, just gives people a sense of what they might discover if they want to dive in. Like, who knew you could be a member of the American Bar Association, get travel discounts, and not be a lawyer? Couple quick hit questions here. In terms of AI, where do you think that's taking everything?
I hope it really helps the travel industry, because it's the travel industry. Technology needs to up its game. I mean, even just trying to get through to a phone agent to do something simple. Like, how many airlines make you wait to just do something? So we're starting to see that through self-service and chatbots, really making things much easier. and even just booking a trip, today you need to open up 10 browsers, research, try to assess what's real, what's not. I think AI has a lot to learn still on the travel trip booking, but I think helping people take more impactful, more personalized trips, because I think we talk about it in the book, over tourism is we got to stop just going to the same places, people. Like, in Barcelona this year, there's super soakering people, like, stop coming here. So, we need to up our game in how we plan and spread the travel love around, because everyone going to Rome in the summer and Barcelona all year, uh, you know, let's take it up a notch, people. And I think AI can help with that.
After this, it might be people crowding the streets of New Hope, Brian.
I know. Every time I post about it, all my neighbors are like, stop. But then I'm like, but our property values. And then I'm like, okay, I guess so.
Well, where should people go? I mean, what do you have a chance here now to promote some of your favorite hidden gem destinations? Go for it.
I mean, I love Rwanda. I've trekked with the gorillas twice. Absolutely spectacular. I did an expedition cruise to Greenland, which was really, really beautiful. United Airlines is now flying nonstop to Greenland. I'm excited to go to Mongolia. United is also flying to Mongolia starting this summer. I think Portugal and Italy are super, super crowded. Start spreading the love, go around Europe. Bulgaria is really cool in the summertime. Croatia is popular, but not nearly as popular as Italy and Portugal. You're going to get cheaper. So yeah, I just push people to or if you want to go to Portugal, the Azores are absolutely spectacular, beautiful. And now they have nonstop flights from New York, so it's kind of a great halfway point, almost going to Europe. And I love South Africa. And just remember, people, I mean, especially Americans, the US dollar is strong these days, nearly on parity with the euro. The US dollar goes a long way, especially in South America, Argentina. So you can get a lot more bang for your buck when you live in a country with a strong currency. So think about that too. Don't just look at the flight price. Well, think about, how far is my local currency going to take me when I get to go where I'm going?
I think it's the Stoics, or one of the Stoics, that says, like, every so often, I'm totally butchering this, you should live like totally simple and without, all these things for a period of days or weeks or whatever. Do you ever do that with travel? Or are you just like, you know what, I'm just going to like totally rough it on this trip so I can then re-up my appreciation?
Well, yeah, it is good to, I fly, especially with kids, and, I'll fly economy just because it's easier with like a row of three versus, and a lot of times in business class, lie flat beds are not great for like a 2-year-old that wants to get up and move around. So I like to be sitting next to them. But it's tough because I've gotten used to luxury travel. So even going to like 3- and 4-star hotels now where I'm not getting the level of service, my room service, it's tough. And hey, I've got so many points, I need to use them. So I'm generally of the go big or go home mindset. So I wish I could say, oh no, I go camping for 2 weeks a year just off the grid, but that would be inauthentic.
Yeah. I don't think there's anybody listening that would have any issue with the problem of having too many points to use, that you got to use them.
And I'm 6'7", so like being comfortable on a plane is important.
If you could wave a magic wand and change something in travel, what would it be?
Ooh, I would. Well, I think sustainability wise, have all planes be fully, much more carbon friendly. Cruises are still wreaking havoc because that is the one big, our planet is suffering from global warming unequivocally. We need better, transportation is a huge piece of that. Certainly not the largest, but, having, very efficient alternative fuels that can power planes, trains, and automobiles, I think would be my number one wish for the travel industry.
Okay. That's a great one. I second that. We talked a bit about reframing the points and miles game and some of those reframes. I'm just wondering for you, for your life journey, have there been some big reframes for you right now that you're kind of like sitting with, or just, anything like that that's, maybe you've had some challenging moments along this points guy journey. What are some of the things you've learned? What's some of your best advice?
I mean, the biggest reframe is having kids and just seeing the world now through their eyes. I cannot, and I know a lot of people want to have kids. It's really expensive. I know a lot of travelers are like, I don't want to give up my travel. I still haven't seen the world. I can just vouch that, I mean, for me personally, even with a 2-year-old, but getting to travel, take them to museums. I just took my son to the Natural History Museum in New York. I almost started crying just watching his mind get blown, exhibit to exhibit and absorbing. And also, I'm learning at a higher rate now as a parent. So many interesting facts. And I took him on safari in South Africa at age 2, and he did amazing. So you can still travel, and in fact, travel does not become less fun. I personally think it's become so much more engaging on so many levels. Challenging for sure, but challenging things make things more rewarding at the end. At least that's what I tell myself.
Being a father has definitely helped me slow down and kind of appreciate moments. Yeah, particularly like you said, on the road, you're taking it in a different way, or maybe sometimes you're seeing something fresh that you haven't seen fresh in a while for whatever reason. I love that. Anything else you want to leave us with? Final quote you're living by? Some words of wisdom?
It's a travel podcast, but I just love this quote. Travel's the only expense that makes you richer. And I believe it. And I think, all the trends show that people are now spending more on travel, less on things. We're such a consumerist society. I get barraged with Instagram ads of junk that we're all buying and so much clothes. So I would just urge everyone to think about the things that you need, the actual physical items, and spend less on those and more on travel. And I think we'll all be a little bit better people. And of course, give back to organizations that, not that you need the karma points, but just know the more you give, the more you get.
Love it, man. Bucks County representing. I'm going to ping you next time I'm in New Hope.
Please do.
Thanks so much, Brian. And of course, the book, one last time, How to Win at Travel. Best place for people to go and find it?
Wherever you buy books. And if you're international, we're not selling hardcovers yet internationally, but there's an audio book that I narrated, an ebook that is available wherever you get your books.
Cool, man. Thanks so much. We'll do it in person next time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Take care. There you have it, my friend. Thank you so much for listening, for being a part of this community. And I invite you to get in touch anytime, by the way. Jason@zerototravel.com is my email. I've been including these community shout-outs in the newsletter. So if you want to hear from other people in this community, some of the stories, some of the traveling they're doing, then you can always sign up for that. It's free, zerototravel.com/newsletter. And since it's been a while since I've shared a shout-out here, I wanted to do a quick one to Jeanette, a listener of this show. She said she's been listening to the podcast for years. She loves travel. Her children are now grown. She's recently divorced, had a heart attack, and she said, quote, I am finally going to travel around Italy for a month. My employer has agreed to let me work for 2 weeks remotely, and the rest is vacation time. This is not as much as others have done, but it's a big step for me. I wanted to share that I will be a digital nomad for 2 weeks, and I am so excited. Thank you for doing your podcast, inspiring us all, Jeanette. I just wanted to share that really quickly, give her a huge shout out. We gave her a shout out on the newsletter as well, but I just think that, don't ever judge the amount of time. I mean, you take what you can get, right? In her case, she's going to Italy for a month. Like she says, it's a big step for her. And as she shared there, getting to be a digital nomad for 2 weeks, I mean, take what you can get with your life situation, right? You might not be able to be a digital nomad for 2 years or even 2 months, but if you can take 2 weeks and that's what you want to do, go for it. It's a way to kind of dip your toes in and experience that lifestyle, even if for a short bit, and own it, be proud of it, take what you can get. So that's a little call to action out there to anybody listening. If you've been thinking big, which I always think it's great, to think big, but we got to start small sometimes, right? As cliche as that is. And we can get those little wins. Just another way we can win at travel. Take the trip that you can take in the situation you're in now. We can be grateful for those trips, not compare ourselves to what everybody else is doing or even to our own big ideas, and take what we can get. So just wanted to give her a shout out. I'm going to leave you with a quote from the poet Walt Whitman on that note, who said, quote, keep your face always toward the sunshine, and the shadows will fall behind you. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time. Peace and love to you and yours. Cheers.
This podcast has been brought to you by ZeroToTravel.com. Ideas and advice to make your travel dreams a reality.